joined now by Baseball Hall of Famer Jim Palmer, who was a big part of the watching and having Frank Robinson help him win a few ball games when he was an Orioles player. Now, Jim, when you look back at this, you saw Frank arrive in '66. You were a young man then. You won 15 games in that '66 season. What impressed you most about Frank Robinson when you first met him?
Well, I think the persona. He was. Well, he certainly didn't like he didn't care what the opposition thought about him. I used to be on the board of the baseball systems team, and Bob Gibson was on there, and I used to always look at Bob Gibson and going, boy, would I have liked to have been his teammate. And I think while a lot of people didn't like Frank because he was such a good player, they would have liked to have had him as a teammate. I still remember the first time I ever saw him swing a bat. Steve Cosgrove was a bonus kid out of Houston. The Orioles had drafted. Great fastball, great curveball right off the table. And I'm sitting next to Dick Hall on the bench, and Frank had come to Baltimore to look for housing, and then he comes to spring training, so he's a little bit late. We're playing the inter-squad game at Miami Stadium. And Cosgrove throws him one of these perfect curveballs down and away, and he kind of gets out on his front foot, but he keeps his hands back, and he hits it off the chalk line for a double. And I turn to Dick Hall, and I go, I think we just won the pennant. And as it turned out, the Orioles would win 97 games. We would sweep the Dodgers. He'd hit 2 home runs, so 49 in the regular season, Triple Crown, MVP. And then actually in 67, guys, he was off to a better start before he had the collision with Al Weiss. He was known for, you didn't want to be lingering if you were a middle infielder, whether you were a shortstop or second baseman. He played the game hard. He played it tough. And, it's a sad day. It's not sad in this, in the respect that I had a chance to be one of his teammates and get to see him play, because I've been around the game a long time. And from an offensive standpoint, of course, I never saw Mays play or Aaron, when he heydays in the National League. But, boy, I can't think of anybody being a better offensive player than Frank was.
Jim, 25 home runs combined July and August, the year that he won the Triple Crown. What do you think, how do you define him as a hitter? How difficult was he to pitch against? I know you didn't pitch really against him, but what kind of a hitter was he?
Well, he could hit any pitch you throw out of the ballpark to any part of the ballpark. I think one of my favorite stories, you wonder how you get to the Hall of Fame. Well, you have teammates like, Brooks Robinson and Frank and, Boog Powell and Paul Blair. Buford. You go down the list. Eddie Murray, Cal. You don't win a lot of games. But I pitched a game against Catfish Hunter, and I didn't really pitch against Catfish that often. And Ken Harrelson hit a 2-run home run in the 4th inning, hit a line drive down the left field line of Memorial Stadium. So Frank comes up, and we're trailing in the bottom of the 9th. Catfish has struck out Frank 3 times. So Dick Williams, who's the Hall of Fame manager, he's not going to take Catfish out. We got a couple of guys on. Frank hits a high fly ball down the right field line, curves it inside the foul pole. They used to have that metal kind of mezzanine down there where cameraman would be, and he hit it into there for a 3-run home run. We win. I go to Cooperstown. So, I still, it's funny in your mind's eye, you can remember, pitches you threw or home runs or strikeouts, but I still remember, I kind of hurt my arm at the end of the 66 season, and I'm pitching against the Twins, and it's freezing in Baltimore, and Dean Chance is pitching for the Twins. Now, 3 years earlier, this is 1967, he pitched 12 shutouts. Nasty sinker, great slider. Frank took him into the bullpen, blown away sliders with one hand. And that was Frank Robinson. He could hit any pitch. So I'm beat Tion and 1-0 in Cleveland, to the opposite field. When I made the club in 66, everybody got hurt. I pitched 5 no-hit innings against the Yankees. Al Downing threw him a changeup blown away. He hit it into the wind. He hit it over the clock and the scoreboard in right center field for a 2-run home run. We won 2-0. So helped me make the club in 66. Helped me get my first World Series ring, $11,683.04, which is $4,000 more than I made. And, you're going to miss Frank because, he was a tough guy, but, he mellowed. And, boy, when you had a chance to play with somebody of that caliber, I can just imagine, what people said about Yastrzemski or Aaron or, Mays. When you get to see somebody like that day in and day out, and the effect they have on everybody else. Kind of like the Michael Jordan effect, where when you get a player of that magnitude, he makes everybody better.
Jim, I want you to go back into the Oriole dugout in 1966 on opening day when he hit the home run off of Earl Wilson. It seemed like he was making a major statement just like he did in the first inning of the World Series in '66. Do you remember how the club felt when Frank hit that home run on opening day?
Well, we had seen him play all spring, or, when he got there. I mean, he played the regular season. And like I told you, I mean, he'd already taken Downing into the wind on a perfect blown-away changeup. But he just set the tone. I mean, you got to understand, we had really good players. Brooks embraced him. Brooks is, had won the MVP in 64. So here, 2 years later, you get a guy that won the MVP in the National League. He would win an MVP Triple Crown that year. But, we all knew that Frank was going to make us a better player. And Earl Wilson has as good a slider as anybody in baseball. I mean, I can still remember Louis Aparicio. He would take that slider and hit a one-hopper right back to Earl, and he'd come back, and they'd go, "How's he throwing?" He goes, "He doesn't have," can't tell you the word. But Earl Wilson, I mean, so again, Earl Wilson, I don't exactly remember the pitch, but Earl Wilson, he wasn't an easy touch. So again, he was tough to beat because of the slider. I mean, he's a tremendous offensive hitting pitcher. So when it just kind of set the tone for the way the season was going to be. And, again, I think we think of '66 because it was the first time the Orioles were in the World Series. But, Frank was an integral part of the 69, 70, and 71 Orioles that won 109, 108, and 101 games.
Jim, how about how he kept the clubhouse loose with the Kangaroo Court? How did that all develop?
Well, I mean, who could you think of a better judge? I mean, just to put the mop on, and and the great thing about the Kangaroo Court, we only had the Kangaroo Court when we won. Think about that. And guys, I mean, everybody wants to win. Everybody talks about it, but again, I mean, then we had awards, and Frank was instrumental. I mean, we had the Chico Simone No Touch Award because Chico was known more for his bat than his glove. We had the Don Buford Red Ass Award because Buford would always get upset, so we had a toilet that was painted red. So if somebody got upset, you'd give him that award. John O'Donohue pitched for the Indians. He used to throw these long home runs, so we had the John O'Donohue Home Run Award if you threw a long home run. So they were, if you yawned in the dugout, you'd get fined. I still remember Chico Simone telling Kurt Moten, who was one of our outfielders, you're a collusionist. And Kurt looked across the locker room, and Chris Frank's the judge, with his gavel, and he goes, "Don't accuse me of something you can't even spell." So it was, it was a great time. And again, really the message, of the Kangaroo Court was you didn't do it when you lost, and we didn't lose too many games in '69, '70, and '71.
What did Frank mean to the Baltimore Orioles franchise?
Well, I think he put us on the map. I was down at the fantasy camp with Brooks and, the Fan Fest. So, Brooks is now finally, doing some PR for the Orioles. But Brooks, he was talking about, talking to some of the campers down in Sarasota the other day, that when he first got to the Orioles, I think 55, I mean, you guys may know but he said we only won, we lost 105 games or something like that. And in 60, we were in the pennant race. And in 64, they were in the pennant race. So this was a club that, like I said, won 94 games in 1965. The Twins won 102. So the minute we got Frank, he just changed the whole dynamic. And just think if you're an Oriole fan. Now, all of a sudden, you've kind of been in the races. It's always been the Yankees or the White Sox, and the Yankees would win both in 60 and 64. But you were in the mix. But when you got Frank, you were really in the mix. I think a lot of people, when you go back and look at the trade, you think about, okay, well, Milt Pappas for Frank Robinson. I mean, Milty won over 200 games, and Milt could pitch. He was, his nickname was Five and Fly because if he had a lead, he was gone. But Milt has as good a stuff as any guy I ever saw in the big league. But again, when you get a dynamic player like Frank, and like I said earlier, he's the guy that everybody wants on their team because of the way he played the game.
Well, Jim, we appreciate you taking a few moments to talk about the Orioles' great player, Frank Robinson, Baseball Hall of Fame. We appreciate it a lot.
Well, you're welcome. You guys take care.